Just like hot grits and hot takes, justice is best served on a hot plate. Welcome to Brunch and Budget, the show about personal finance and racial economic inclusion with your host, Pamela Capalad, a certified financial planner and accredited financial counselor here to take the bite out of your budget. Live from Greenhouse Studios in East New York, Stickum, ha ha ha, Stickum, this is Brunch and Budget. Brunch and Budget is part of the Race and Wealth Network. I'm your sound provider, Dialect, and here's your host, Pamela Capalad.
Thank you, Dialect, and thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We've been on a bit of a hiatus. I'd say you've been listening to some oldies but goodies for the last 3 months because we had a baby.
Thank you for listening to the oldies but goodies and you know, learning stuff. There's stuff in them.
There's stuff in them. Everything, you know, timeless, whatever.
Oldies, goodies, butts.
That's oldies, goodies, and butts. It's true.
That's what we should change the name of the show to that. Oldies, goodies, and butts. Right?
Maybe more people will listen. Maybe more people tune in.
Oldies, goodies, and butts. Oh my. Oldies, goodies, and butts.
Oh my.
Shout out to Warner King Washington.
Yes. So we're back. We have a baby now since the last time we were on.
I mean, we had it like it's ours. It was made of us. We didn't just like find one.
We didn't just find one on the street, no. But he's actually right here in front of us sleeping. And since we're back, we figured that we would do another Back to Basics episode. See how I did that? See, back and back. I'm working on stuff. Anyway, our Back to Basics episode today, we are going to be talking about understanding your credit score.
Yay.
Always a fun one. A fun one.
Well, the thing about credit scores is like credit is such a pervasive thing that I've seen people, joke about because I haven't been on, but like I've seen people joking about how like their Tinder profile, they're looking for people's credit score rather than their like height and, you know, dating interests and stuff like that. It's such an important thing and it matters in all of these areas of life that we're going to get into. But none of us really knows what it is, and it's not your fault if you don't really know exactly what it is or how to do it. I'm going to be honest with you. We don't either because we haven't been given all the information. We do the best we can.
It is definitely a black box. They tell you sort of what goes into your credit score, so we're going to be able to go through that with you. But there's a reason why every credit score and every bureau's, we're going to go into that in a little bit, but everyone's formula is different and they change it all the time and it's good times.
The thing about credit scores is, you know, don't feel terrible if it's confusing, if one aspect is confusing. If you're like, I don't understand any of it, it is intentionally done so. And mind you, there are folks who are busting their behinds right now trying to change things, trying to make it more equitable, trying to make it actually just make more sense. But we have the system we have right now, and we're going to walk you through it, and we're going to do the best we can.
Yes. But before that, we do have a little New Year's investment appetizer for you guys.
Investment appetizer. It's the food before you eat your food.
Investment
for your brain.
It's an investment for your brain.
So, the investment appetizer today, since we are talking about credit and debt, I figured we should talk about bonds. Bonds. What is a bond? And the reason why I want to talk about bonds is because a bond is something you can buy where you lend someone money and they have to pay you back.
Ooh.
So someone is indebted to you.
Ooh, you make them indebted to you.
That's
so, like,
right.
What's the best kind of bond? Do you want, like, a Connery? Is a Craig okay?
Daniel Craig was a little too blonde. I don't know.
Yeah, is that
Idris
risky?
Elba maybe in the mix? Is that risky? The Daniel Craig bonds? A little risky. He was a little bit of a risk, it's true. So besides the James bonds, we have bonds as in stocks and bonds. And, you know, we've talked about what stocks are, and we probably talked about what bonds are in the past, but in the context of this situation of talking about debt and talking about credit and talking about you using creditors' money, you can be the creditor in a bond situation. So with a bond, there are lots of places and entities that issue bonds. So you can get a bond from a corporation, you can get a bond from a municipality or basically local government, you can get a bond, you can get a federal bond, and there's lots of different types within that. Basically, a bond is an IOU. You basically say, hey, company or municipality or whatever thing that I believe in, they're trying to raise money. So the actual company itself, let's talk about corporate bonds right now. The actual company itself, let's say it's like Amazon or something, right? They're trying to raise money. And one of the ways that they can raise money is they can borrow money from investors. So they issue bonds and they say, okay, if you give me $1,000, right, investor, if you give Amazon $1,000, then they agree to give you that $1,000 back in 5 years, but every single year that they're holding on to it, they're going to give you an interest rate. And so that's the basic way that a bond works. Now, the thing is, of course, there is what's called a secondary bond market where bonds get traded at the same time between actual investors themselves. So the company itself, like Amazon, is issuing the bond and they're saying, whatever happens, we're paying you the interest rate and we're giving you your money back in 5 years. So if you keep that bond that you paid $1,000 for, in 5 years, you'll get $1,000 plus a little bit of interest also. The thing is, though, you have the $1,000, let's say Amazon is paying you 5% interest, right? And you're like, okay, that's so great. $1,000, I'll get it back in 5 years. But suddenly something happens and you're like, crap, 2 years later, you need that bond money back. And Amazon's like, I'm sorry, you said we could have it for 5 years, so we're not giving it back to you. And this is where you go to the secondary bond market and you say, okay, let me try and sell this bond to somebody else, right? And that's fine, right? Hopefully you can get your $1,000 for it, but the risky part about bonds, and in general, bonds are not considered risky because you keep that money in there, you get paid that interest rate, and then you get the money back at the end. But if for some reason you need to get that money back and trade in the bond, and the main risk is, let's say you are getting a 5% interest rate for that bond. Amazon, all of a sudden, 2-3 years later, they issue a bond that has an interest rate for 6%. And so if you're trying to sell your Amazon bond that's paying 5% on the secondary bond market, why would someone pay you $1,000 to get 5% when they can just pay Amazon $1,000 to get 6% interest? And so the risk with bonds is that the interest rates change all the time with every new bond that's issued. And so your $1,000 bond that you bought that's only paying 5% interest is inherently going to be worth less than another bond that also someone paid $1,000 for but is paying 6% interest. And so that's really how a bond works and what the risks are with a bond. The thing about bonds is because they're considered not very high risk, if you want to lower the risk in your portfolio, yes, have some stocks in there, but it's also a good idea to have some bonds in there to lower the risk because bonds are considered more stable as well. And what I mean by that, just to give you an extreme example, 2008, 2009, the market crashed, stock market went down 40%, and the bond market only went down 10%. And so the amount of risk that you're dealing with when it comes with buying bonds is significantly less, especially when the market is going down. And so you always want to have some kind of allocation there, and you get to be the creditor for the other company, and they're going to be paying you interest instead of you having to pay interest as someone who's borrowing money from them. So that's a bond, and that is your investment appetizer.
Yeah, go back to learning things.
Yes, learning things is good, and we're going to keep learning more things, right, Dialect? Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe we could chill. For the rest of the podcast, just everybody just chill.
Everybody just chill.
No. You're
No,
not
we
going to get to
can't.
chill.
We're learning about credit. I'm sorry.
Well,
credit
I was going to say,
not chill.
yeah, credit is not chill. You're not going to really get to chill.
We're
It's going to be
not.
a lot, and
gonna be a
it's
lot.
okay. Like Pam likes to say to her clients, if you feel the need to take some sort of inebriant or something to make you feel closer to folks, maybe just hug somebody.
Yeah.
Before we
Just
get
hug
into-
someone for the next hour while we talk about this.
Straight up, a lot of this information and a lot of these rules are contradictory. A lot of them don't make practical sense. A lot of them are antithetical to practical sense.
Right.
But they are what they are, and we figure out how to juggle this as best we can so we can get our scores where they need to be, so we can do what we need to do.
Yeah, and the most frustrating thing is your credit score has become, a lot of people equate it to a financial report card, but it has become a thing that a lot of places, a lot of companies, and a lot of people use to determine whether or not they want to do business with you. And that's ultimately what it is there's 3 credit bureaus, you may be familiar with them. Equifax, you know, the guys who lost all of our data. Experian and TransUnion are the 3 credit bureaus who issue credit scores, essentially, or who help calculate credit scores. And then you'll also hear about FICO, the Fair Isaac Company, and they use Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion's data to actually calculate a FICO score. So Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion all have their own credit scores.
And none of them are FICO. FICO
None
is
of
a
them
whole
are
different
FICO.
company.
Yeah, exactly. So there's 3 credit bureaus, and they all calculate their own credit score. And then FICO is this other entity that uses these 3 credit bureaus' data to calculate a whole other credit score. And FICO, you hear that phrase a lot, and you hear like, oh, get your FICO score, because a lot of the major lenders, like mortgage companies, banks, financial institutions in general, use FICO for whatever reason as the gold standard for what your real credit score is, quote unquote. It's really difficult. Your credit score is a moving target in general because all of these companies use a different calculation to actually determine what your score is.
By the way, we're not super interested in telling the history of how these things came about, but if you guys are, please feel free to holler at us and maybe we'll do an episode about that.
Yeah.
It's more important that we understand, now that it's here, what we're doing with it.
Exactly. And so the thing about your credit score is, again, it's this black box of a calculation. We're going to give you a break with a song so you can let all that sink in, because then we're really going to go in on what your credit score is, what goes into your credit score calculation. But the thing about credit scores is, especially I'd say in the last 10 years, I don't know if Credit Karma has anything to do with it, but the awareness around credit scores and the significance of credit scores, I feel like has increased ever since I started working in the industry. Before it was just like this thing that you kind of know to maybe be able to get a mortgage. And now, like Dialect said, it's like on people's Tinder profiles. Like there are people who will say like, I don't want to date anyone if their credit score is under 700, you know?
Well, and I think what it is we have now entered the stage in life where these things are affecting us.
Yes, exactly.
So it's become of paramount importance. And I feel bad that, you set the audience up for failure here, telling them that they were going to get a break. Sorry, guys, you're not getting a break with the song. Are we going into the song, though?
Yeah,
but the song's not a break. It's actually a first. This is the first time I'm intentionally bringing back a song that I have played before, because this song is excellent. It's one of our MCs, homies here in New York, MC White Owl with DJ Fat Cat Hayes on the beat. And the song is not a break because it also is instructional. It's called Credit, and it's about credit. We'll be back with you in a minute. Bunch of budget.
We're going to look behind the scenes and learn how bank credit serves the world of business.
That goddamn credit.
Don't give those banks your money. Yo, account summary, credit in disarray. Discover that my master has revolving bills to pay. Live within your means. I'm trying to teach my son. Once we tied it all together, I guess Capital One. Stuck in the city banking. FICO score tanking. I chase preferred credit to fly to friendlies, guys stop ranking. SunTrust, Bank of America, Pops, they all the same. Debit in the credit, swipe and dip, you play the game. Chips ingrained in plastic, plastic in your pocket. You earn a bunch of bonus miles, first it's hard to knock it. Then the travel dates are blacked out. Can't fly without that visa. I'm in the Diners Club with Amex, earning bonus points at leisure. Staring at that black stripe magnetic hologram. Get rid of the paper money, that's Uncle Sam's plan. That's Babylon, man. I was a slave back in the sand. And that modern day slavery is the credit card plan.
That goddamn credit. Because I know the cash rules.
Banks are taking your money and playing with it.
Goddamn credit.
These banks.
Everything you get, you got to work hard for it.
Now I'm working crazy hours trying to get that paper stacking. Pull plastic out the wallet, criminals is card cracking. Dudes computer hacking at the register, they hyper. Buying stolen digits from that bodega credit swiper. You got a little paper, that credit you should get it. If you really can't afford it, you really shouldn't get it. Charge it to the game when your new chase late. 25% a month in interest if them payments is late. Now God gets the credit, everyone else is paying cash. So I keep a wad of hundos stashed up in the dash. Internet banking, they advertise it's free. But make sure you check the math with all them ATM fees. Lost uptown, looking for that loud that stank. Trying to find a skeleton to crack key bank. Membership fees, it's like an oil embargo. Felt like I scored a TD when I bounced from Wells Fargo.
That goddamn credit. Because I know the cash rules. That goddamn credit.
Everything you get, you got to work hard for
Now I
it.
ain't the type to mess around with other people, sonny. I'm the type to invest and quadruple our money. You need to spend and pay back when time to build credit. Try to start young, remember White Owl said it. Now your credit score's a number that they use to keep track of your possible decisions and the way you might act. Given a chance to advance, facing financial stress, they offer you money, hoping you fail that test. Forever indebted, to death do you part. Don't put your eggs in one basket, put the horse before the cart. They say the best things in life are free. So read the fine print so you can understand the fee. That credit, you should get it. It's just too fake. Let me break it down for you, try to elaborate. What's real is real estate. land and homes. Find a house to invest in with real strong bones. These ain't just poems, this is a map to help you feast. Financial advice to help you avoid the beast. The banks don't like you when you pouring a loan. And the beast is the beast cause it preys on its own. Bonds and stocks, borrow and exchange. Charging double digits and the math is strange.
It's a shame nowadays you got to stay paid.
So when that card comes in the mail, don't get swayed.
That goddamn credit, yeah, because I know the cash rules. That goddamn credit, yeah.
Everything you get, you got to work hard for it.
Credit. It is an instrument which is a substitute for money on credit. Credit. It is an instrument which is a substitute for money on credit. Credit. It is an instrument which is a substitute for money on credit. Credit. It is an instrument which is a substitute for money on credit. And at the end of the month, sends a bill for the credit delivered during the month.
It's a shame nowadays you got to stay paid.
And we are back. Brunch and Budget. That was MC White Owl with Fat Cat Hayes with Credit, which is what we're talking about.
Yes, we are going back to basics again. This is, I'd say, the last in our series. I don't know, maybe we'll do other back to basics. There's lots of basics. But we are talking about understanding your credit score today and the importance of it. We were just talking before the break about why it's important to maintain and how it has become kind of this cultural thing of, what's your credit score? What's your credit score? Tell me what your credit score is. I'm thinking about my credit score. And the thing about it is that it still remains a mystery. I don't know if that adds to the kind of conversation around it, but it remains a mystery how it's exactly calculated, because you can have the exact same credit report across all credit bureaus and every credit score is going to be different. And it could be different by up to like 50, 80, sometimes 100 points I've seen, even when it looks exactly the same. And so I want to talk about the credit score rules, and then I also want to talk about the importance of looking at your credit report from each credit bureau separately, because often what can happen is the disparity between credit scores may mean that there are some things being reported to one credit bureau that's not being reported to other credit bureaus. So first, let's talk about the credit score rules, and then we'll talk about your credit report, because those are unfortunately two different things that are maybe sometimes intertwined and possibly the same thing.
Yeah, that's the hardest thing. I mean, at some point, can we give a little bit more of a breakdown between the rules and the score and the report and
Yeah, because we can talk about how the credit score is calculated, but that is based on the credit report. So the credit report is, you can get it for free at annualcreditreport.com.
not other websites?
No, it has to be annualcreditreport.com. That website is funded by the 3 credit bureaus, and you are allowed to pull your credit report for free once a year at annualcreditreport.com. And you can pull your credit report from Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. And the reason why you want to pull all 3 is, again, I have no idea why there's 3 credit bureaus. I also have no idea why this shit is privatized, honestly, because it should really be a government entity. But that's a whole other conversation because it affects so much of our finances. But there are 3 private companies that determine your credit score based on who reports to them. And so lenders, any creditors, anything like that, and I'm saying credit card companies, student loan companies, mortgage companies, anyone who sends something to collections like a medical bill, a utility bill, a late rent payment, something like that, all of that stuff shows up on your credit reports. The thing is, it may or may not show up on all of them. And so some lenders or some creditors will decide, I'm only going to send your information to Experian, or I'm only going to send your information to TransUnion and Equifax. And technically, all 3 of these credit bureaus are supposed to talk to each other and share this information, but that often doesn't happen. And so you'll find a lot of mistakes on credit reports, and you will also find a lot of situations where they don't match up. And so sometimes you'll see a credit card on 2 of the 3 credit reports, or you'll see a medical bill only show up on one of the credit reports. And all of this stuff affects your credit score in different ways. Because if there's a collections bill on one credit report and not on another credit report, you can imagine that your credit score is going to be calculated differently for that reason. And so a credit report is the actual thing that FICO and all of the other places use to calculate your score. So that's where your score comes from, but they're considered 2 different things. And so that's a credit report. Do we got that down, guys?
That makes sense,
Okay.
right? I think it makes sense. It's all
So-
of that stuff.
It's all of that stuff. It's basically every single time you make a move surrounding your credit or having to do with your credit, it gets reported on your credit report.
And then they look at the report and make a score.
Yes,
Based on the
on
report.
the information in the report, based on the activity essentially in the report.
So FICO looks at your report.
Yes.
And then they decide.
And then they calculate a score based on that. And just to start off with, the scores go between 350 and 850, which I don't fucking know why. Again, what?
Well,
350 to 850?
I'm raising my hand here. Can I tell you why?
Yes.
So
Tell
there's
us
a
why.
thing in advertising where they say to create uneven numbers, and I don't mean odd even, but like ones that don't operate on a
Like
0 to 10
unsettling
scale.
numbers.
Unsettling, confusing numbers. That's why if you're buying something that's $10, it'll be like $9.97.
Yeah.
Because that psychologically does something to your brain where it confuses you a bit, which is more likely to make you purchase something if you're confused. Isn't that great? We buy stuff when we're confused.
That's why.
So the 350 to 750 is another
850,
way.
yeah.
Excuse me, 850. The 350 to 850 is another way that they confuse you because it doesn't start at 0 and then go up to 100.
Right, which is like, that would make a ton of sense. And it would be based on a scale that we understand, like A, B, C, D, F, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I first found out I had a credit score and it was bad, but I didn't know. I was like 550, and I was like, that's a lot.
That sounds like a lot. I don't know in what context, but yeah. And the other thing too is, let's talk about the breakdown, right? Because the thing is, the score goes between 350 and 850, but the reality is they want everyone to be A students. So basically, if you have a score below 600, it's considered needs improvement, which basically just means it's not good.
I mean, to be fair, our current school system has created a situation where it's only okay to have A's also.
That's also true. So everything's matching up, I guess. But yeah, so with the credit score system, if your score is below 600, it will be very hard for you to find credit products like credit cards or personal loans or things like that that don't have a high interest rate, or possibly be very hard for you to get approved at all. If your score is between 600 to 650, when it's like more in the mid 650s, then you have a better chance of being able to qualify for credit cards, for lower interest loans, things like that. But really, 700 is kind of the magic number in terms of being able to have the best interest rates, being able to qualify for the credit cards with all the rewards, being able to qualify for low interest personal loans, low interest auto loans, things like that. And then really, they've done studies where they found that your score doesn't really need to be much higher than 760 to be able to qualify for the best of everything, including the best mortgage rates and things like that. So, trying to get a score of 800 plus is just like trying to get extra credit, but really 760 and you're good.
Well, it's, when we think about our credit score, I think a really easy way to break it down is, if you only need to know two things about it, is that credit scores are about access and rates. And if you get yourself to above that 650, 700-ish area, that's when you can start to have access to stuff. Because when you have a sub 600 credit score, you just can't get things. They're just going to straight up say no to you. And you're going to have harmful things happening in all other areas that we'll get into in a second. But once you get it to 700, it's like you're saying about the magic number, that's when you can have access to things. And then when you get towards the 760 and it's all above there, that's when you have the best rates.
Yeah, that's when you're paying less money for borrowing the same amount of money.
Yeah, that's what
essentially.
we mean by the best rates.
Yes, exactly. So let's go into what makes up your credit score. Brace yourselves, everybody.
What makes up a credit score?
Brace yourselves. None of this makes any sense. And
Some of it makes a little sense.
the way we know that most of this doesn't make any sense and it contradicts itself is we teach this to 16, 17-year-olds, and you just see their faces like fall. And they're like, that can't really be how it works.
If you are 16 or 17 and listening to this, please look in the mirror as you listen.
Yes, watch your face fall. But yeah, no, it is how it works, unfortunately, and here we are. And I will say that we have gone to conferences and talked to people in policy who are actively working to change how this is calculated, because as you will hear, a lot of the things that go into making up your credit score also penalize people of color and poor people and people in marginalized communities on purpose. That is also by design. The whole thing about needing to have credit to get credit already keeps a lot of people out of this game. And this is a game that, again, like Dialect said, it gives you access. and it gives you the ability to borrow money and to leverage the money that you're able to borrow. And so credit score, the very first thing, the most important thing is 35% of your credit score is made up of your payment history. And what that means is any late payment negatively affects your credit score for 7 years. So that means anything that's 30 days late or more will be a negative mark on your credit score, and it will not stop affecting your credit score for 7 years. I don't know why it's that long. That's a stupid amount of time to have something that was 30 days late that maybe you forgot for whatever reason because you were like on vacation. I've seen that with like people who are like, they don't want a 99% payment history. They want 100% payment history.
Yeah, 7 years. I mean, what do you have that's 7 years old?
Oh my God, I don't know. Our dog.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, maybe if you have like a kid or a pet or something, like you keep that for a while.
Yeah.
What, records?
Yeah, records, like nobody, no, except for the credit report people, except for the credit bureaus. So, and when we say late, we mean 30 days or more. And the reason why is because a lot of creditors, it's not worth it to them to report to the credit bureaus unless it's that late. And I know for a fact that American Express, at least when I made a late payment, like 34 days late or something, I like freaked out and I was like, oh my God, did you report to the credit bureaus? And American Express doesn't usually report your score, or usually doesn't report late payments until it's 60 days late. But most creditors, the 30-day mark, as soon as it's late, they get a report to the credit bureaus that you didn't make that payment.
Yeah, I would say to not count on maybe the company that you got taking a while. And again, to reiterate, because we really have to reiterate, it means 30 days late payment. That means that the company you paid late to is reporting to the credit bureau, and that's how you're getting a mark. If you are 6 days late on paying your thing, you might get a fee from the company, but they're not reporting it.
Yeah, exactly. So pay that bill and call to get that fee reversed too, because they'll do that too.
Well, yeah, and even if you end up eating the fee, like make sure that you get to it if you know it now rather than letting it slide.
Yes, and a pro tip we have for you in terms of this payment history one, because again, it affects 35% of your credit score, it's the highest percentage out of all of these, is we recommend to, if you can, set a minimum payment to auto pay. So you don't have to pay off the whole bill. That's the thing about this, is as long as you make the minimum payment on a credit card, that counts as not being late. So if your minimum payment is $50, $100, set it to auto pay. So if you accidentally forget to pay that bill, at least that minimum payment is getting paid and you can take care of the rest the next month. So that's payment history. And then 30% of your score is calculated based on how much you owe versus how much you're able to borrow. So this is called a credit utilization ratio, is the fancy term for it. But basically what it means is, let's say you have a $1,000 limit, and the rule is that they don't want you to spend more than 30% of that limit, which means that if your limit is $1,000, you don't want your balance to be more than $300. Once it crosses that 30% mark, then your credit score will go down. I don't know why. It doesn't make any sense. They said I could borrow $1,000. Why can I only borrow $300?
Well, because they don't want you using the whole thing. They don't want you needing credit. This is the thing that I think is the big thing about it.
Yeah.
It's if you've ever been in a bad dating relationship, it's one of those ones where they consider themselves the star of the relationship. And they want you to want them, but they don't want you to be too clingy with the credit. So they don't want you to need them.
Oh, man.
Well, you're going to see as we go through these rules.
Control issues, guys.
It's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Having a credit score is like dating a narcissist.
There you go. There you go. The credit bureaus just have narcissistic personality syndrome. That's all. But yeah, that's basically what it is. Keeping your credit card balances at 30% of the limit is the most important thing, because it affects 30% of your credit, which is the second most thing that affects your credit. And it's also the quickest way to
30%, having 30% of your balance
of the limit.
Yeah, of the limit, that affects your credit score. That is 30% of your credit score.
Yeah, so 30-30, I guess.
I know.
That's a way to remember it. And the thing about this is it's also the quickest way to lower your credit and the quickest way to increase your credit, because the credit bureaus report credit card balances every 30 days. So they're not reporting the balance every day. So what that means is I often recommend if you want to use your credit card and you want to get it close to that limit, but you have the ability to pay it off regularly, then don't wait till the end of the month to pay it off. You can pay off your credit card as many times during the month as you want. I will sometimes pay off my credit card balance every week. Some clients have decided they're going to pay off their credit card balance every time they get a paycheck, just so they can use up the credit card balance, they can get the points or whatever they're trying to do, but they also know that the high balances won't get reported to the credit bureaus. I had one client who was paying her rent on her credit card and 2 days later would pay off that balance just so she could get the points, but also so that number wouldn't get reported to the credit bureaus. And so that's one
That's
way.
some juggling.
I know, right? But those points for rent, man, you know. So that's one way to kind of manage the balance and still be able to use your credit card regularly. Because, you know, Dialect is right. They don't want it to seem like that you're actually living off your credit cards, even though they give you these limits.
Whoa. Can you say that again?
They don't want it to seem like you're living off the credit cards.
No, the part before it.
What did I say before?
That Dialect was right?
Oh, that Dialect was. Oh, yes. We have that on record, people. Dialect was right. So another tip that I have that I've seen clients find success with is you can call your credit card company to increase the limits on your cards periodically. So I had clients who have done this every 6 months where they called their credit card company and they asked to increase the limit. And there are some situations where you already pre-approved for a limit increase and you just take it. And there are some situations where they have to check your credit score to see if you qualify for a higher limit and your credit score goes down. And we're going to talk about why that happens in a second. But that does affect your credit if they have to check your credit. So the thing is, though, that it doesn't affect your credit that much to have your credit checked to increase the limit. And one of the benefits of that is, let's say that $1,000 credit card gets bumped up to a $2,000 limit. You can, if you still spend $300 to $600, now all of a sudden you can spend a little bit more money on the credit card and not have it affect your credit score negatively. And also, the more credit you have, the more you have as an ability to borrow, or the more limit that you have on your credit cards, essentially, the higher your credit score is.
So this sounds a little too easy, right? Like, so I just call them and they're going to give me more credit? Why didn't they just give me more credit in the first place?
Well, only if they approve you for more credit. So that's why they have to check your credit score.
Well, and what do I have to be thinking about with that to see if it's okay for me to call?
Well, there are some situations, because when I've had clients call before, sometimes they call and the credit card company's like, oh, we've already pre-approved you. Here you go. Now instead of a $10,000 balance, you have a $15,000 balance, and it doesn't affect your credit score at all.
That's awesome.
So they give you the option to say, hey, you want a higher limit? Either you're pre-approved, or they'll tell you we have to check your credit to see if you qualify for a higher limit, and you can say yes or no. So they have to always warn you ahead of time that they're going to check your credit in a way that is going to affect your credit.
Okay. Is there a time when I should realize that I definitely shouldn't, even before I reach out to them? Is there something I can look at with my credit score?
I would say, from what I've seen, if your credit score is below that 600 mark, then you and probably below 650, then it is riskier to call them and ask for a higher limit, because they are going to check your credit and they are going to see that your score isn't that high.
Okay, so even the things that we would consider kind of like mundane and easy to do, like, hey, can you increase my limit? Again, if you have the lower score, you don't have that access.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's just a matter of waiting, so having more time go by, and also starting to pay down those balances to get your credit score up. The more time goes by, the payment history stuff goes away. It affects your credit score less. Also, if you pay down your balances, then you start to get closer to that 30% like balance to limit credit utilization ratio, that magic ratio. And then the next thing that affects your score is 10% of your credit score is based on opening new credit. And so opening or trying to open new lines of credit negatively affects your score. So this is why, when you try to increase your limit on your card, this counts as trying to get new credit. And so that's why your credit score goes down, because 10% of your score is based on you trying to get more credit. And so this is the part that really doesn't make sense, because it's like, but you want me to have credit cards, but when I get a credit card, then my score goes down if I try to get a credit card. And then you don't approve me for a credit card, but my score goes down, which means that I can't apply for a credit card.
Yay.
Credit scores. Yeah, and that's the other thing too, is every time you apply for credit, whether or not you actually get approved, your credit score goes down. And so every store credit card that you apply for, every credit card you apply for, every student loan, every personal loan, every auto loan that you don't get approved for, it affects your credit negatively. It tells other creditors that for some reason other people didn't find you credit worthy, is what they call it.
Man, that's tough because it makes you gun shy, right?
Yeah,
You're like,
totally.
I don't want to ask because it's already down and I don't want it to go down further.
Yeah, but you need credit to also increase your credit. So it's this whole messy thing, you guys. It's this whole messy thing. The other thing
Well,
too.
it's not even a messy thing. You see how it is. If you are not already able to participate in terms of having the resources, the time, and all that stuff, they don't want you to ever participate.
Exactly. Well, and this is part of what doesn't make sense is the credit scoring system. For some reason, it's become a marker of financial health when ultimately it's just about whether or not you're able to get in the credit game. It doesn't make any sense that your credit score isn't tied to the fact that you pay your rent on time every single month, the fact that you pay your cell phone bill on time, and you pay your utilities on time every single month. It's solely tied to you and your ability to have been able to get into the credit game. That's it. That's all it is. And so,
Man, and when you think about fundamentally what makes somebody a trustworthy lender, spender, studies have shown that people pay their rent, people pay their important bills, and credit often tends to be extra stuff.
yeah.
Stuff that wasn't part of your day-to-day, and now you're going to try to buy that. But hey, if things don't work out, I'll stop spending money on that thing and then just let it slide. And then that will say that you are untrustworthy. When it comes to the important stuff,
You're paying your rent. Most people are paying their necessary bills and prioritizing that over discretionary stuff like credit card payments. But this credit score system that's become a marker of financial health doesn't really tell the whole story because it doesn't take any of that into account. It's just about credit. It's just about being in the credit game.
it doesn't tell much of a story.
It really doesn't. So because 10% of your score is made up of opening new lines of credit, then we recommend that you don't open more than or apply for one line of credit more often than every 12 months. It usually takes 12 to 24 months for this to roll off. This is called a hard inquiry. You may have heard that before.
Or a hard hit.
Yeah, or a hard hit, exactly, yes. And so there's a difference between a hard inquiry and a soft inquiry. And a hard inquiry, this affects your credit score, and the only time something affects your credit score, it is when you are trying to borrow money from someone. So, you checking your credit score every single day is not going to affect your credit at all. That's considered a soft inquiry. Is you're just like, I just want to know what it is. But you trying to borrow money from a bank or from a credit card company affects your credit score negatively.
I'm trying to borrow money. That's a hard hit, affects my credit score. I'm just checking just because I want to see. That's a soft hit, doesn't affect it.
Exactly, yes. And then the next thing to affect your credit score, 15% of your score is made up of your credit history, which means both how long you've had your oldest credit card and the average length of your credit lines. So what that means, let's break that down. One of the first pieces of advice I got when it came to credit is to never close your oldest credit card because that determines the length of your credit history. It's considered, again, 7 years is the magic number for whatever reason, but it's not considered that you have a long credit history until you've had a credit card or some line of credit open for at least 7 years. Before that, it's not considered you to have a long enough credit history for the creditors to determine that your score should be as high as whatever it is.
And again, if you're not starting off on good footing, it's really hard to get in there.
It is. It takes a while. And so, again, 15% of your credit history is made up of this. And don't ever close your oldest card, even if you have an annual fee, which I do on my oldest card, but I'm never going to close it because it affects your credit score. You will see your credit score go down anytime a card gets closed. The other thing is,
Man, they also just want to keep you so connected to their system.
they really do.
You're just tied to them forever. You can't close your oldest
that
card.
you never use anymore.
That it might have been a rush decision. You're young and you just want credit. It might have been whoever was willing to give you one.
Yep.
It might have a bad fee associated with it.
Yeah, it's true. It makes no sense. And the other thing is that the other part of credit history is the average length of all of your credit cards. So what that means is you have a credit card that is 10 years old and you have another credit card that is 5 years old. So the average length of your credit history is 7.5 years, right?
Wait, so, but you were just talking about how when we get a new credit card, it's stuff because it worries about your oldest card, but now it also worries about
your newest and your average card, which means every time you open a new card,
exactly,
it's 0 years old, which means that all of a sudden the average length of your credit history also goes down every time you open a new card. So you opening a new card affects 10% of your score for trying to open credit and another 15% of your score for affecting your credit history. So opening a new line of credit affects effectively 25% of your score.
Yeah, this is just like an endurance test.
I know, right? Are you guys still with us? Whew. It's a lot. It's a lot. One more thing.
Wait, there's another thing?
There's 10% more if y'all were keeping track. There's 10% left. It's this little one that like people don't really think about, but 10% of your score is made up of the different types of credit cards that you have. They call it credit mix in use.
Well, the different types of, is it just credit cards, but also like, would like a car loan count as a different type of credit?
Yes, yeah. So credit cards, store cards, student loans. So basically what I'm saying is if you have 3 credit cards, then you're not using enough different types of credit to get this 10%. Your credit score will not be as high as someone who has a credit card, an auto loan, a student loan, and a mortgage. Even though you have the same amount of lines of credit, it will not be the same as someone who has different mixes of credit. So they not only want you in the game, they really want you in all parts of the game, basically. I know that when we got a mortgage, that's when my credit score finally got above 800 because that last 10%, right? That last 10% is that credit mix in use affected my credit score, and it started to affect it positively when I had that different line of credit. So that's it. That's everything that makes up your credit score. I hope we didn't scare you too much. And I actually want to mention too, because the reality is, yes, your credit score is important. It's important for you to understand it. It is very confusing. It's very convoluted. There are a lot of rules that don't make sense. There's a lot of misinformation out there too. Like when we do these in workshops, people ask all kinds of questions about, well, I heard that this affects your credit score and I heard that this affects your credit score. The thing is that you don't need to look at your credit score every day. I don't recommend it. You don't even need to look at your credit score every month or on a super regular basis. You really need to start paying attention to your credit when you want to use it for something, right? If you want to open a new credit card, if you're trying to take out a personal loan, if you're trying to buy a house, that's when you're like, okay, let me take a year, let me take 18 months to really pay attention to my credit. Otherwise, the simplest things to think about are don't open too many cards, pay your balances on time, and keep your balances low.
Wait. So you were just saying, you don't have to worry about it unless you're trying to do something with it. But then you said take a year or 18 months. Like, I don't know about you, but I don't just be like, I would like to buy a thing in 2 years. Let me plan for that. I mean, what's the ramp way? We might not even know we need these things.
Right. That's true. Well, that's why I say, too, the basics, the things to really take away from this are don't open too many lines of credit. Keep your payment history really, really tight, right? Make sure you don't have any late payments and keep your balances low on your credit cards. Because when all of that is happening, then your credit score is probably just fine for you to be able to say, okay, I think I want to buy a house in a year. Because no one turns around and is like, next month I want to buy a house.
Right.
Ish, yes. I know. Pregnant pause right there. But yeah, it doesn't happen very often where someone can turn around and say, I want to buy a house in a month and not have been looking at their credit score.
Right.
Realistically,
well, and
right?
What you're saying is, and what folks really should be doing is making sure they're at that access point.
Yes, exactly.
One thing that we haven't talked about is that getting from 350 to 700 is easier than getting from 700
to 750.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we're thinking about it, we want to make sure that we have that 700, but then the rest of it is a big hump. So it does make sense with like, okay, I'm not focused on it right now. I'm just like living my life and doing my thing. If I can keep it hovering above 700, that's a good place to start.
Or keep it close to 700
right.
Or get above 650 or
that's
whatever it is. Yeah.
Try to keep it around that area. That should be the focus. And then when we start thinking about the bigger long-term plans, that's when we do all of the extra crap that we just talked about.
Right. That's when it's like, okay, can I pay down some of these balances and bump my credit score up a little bit? Can I call a credit card company and increase my limit? Can I find out if I can get a late payment removed that's been affecting, or maybe this late payment will fall off in a year or something like that, you know?
Speaking of these late payments, things falling off and this, that, and the other thing is like one thing about these card companies and, you know, all of this stuff that affects your credit is that we don't have to worry because they're all perfect and they never get anything wrong, right? That's the part that
they never get anything wrong.
But in the rare case where things go wrong, what do we do?
That is a good question. And this is why I also say make sure that you check all of your credit reports on annualcreditreport.com on a regular basis.
All of them.
All of them, all three, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion, because especially if you see a huge credit score disparity, you need to check all of them.
Yeah, I had a situation where, and I might have talked about this last time we did, but anyway.
Yeah.
I had a situation where two of my companies were saying good things. I forget which one. It might have been TransUnion. And one had a lower score.
Yeah, like 80 points lower.
Yeah, and I didn't know why. And I hadn't even noticed it the first time because you don't always look at all three of them. And then when I found it and then I went and looked up what happened, this one place had reported an $800 unpaid bill from Con Ed. Thanks, Con Ed.
Yeah.
And it was messed up because I looked at the dates and I was like, wait, that's my old apartment. I don't live there anymore. I didn't live there during the dates that they said that. It was a mistake. It was somebody else had moved in and they didn't put their name on the Con Ed, so I guess they defaulted to billing me.
Yeah, and then they sent it to collections, even though he wasn't living at that apartment anymore.
Actually wasn't that hard. I got a note from my current landlord saying that I moved into this place, and I showed my first Con Ed bill from the place that I was living in. And then I had my old landlord write a note talking about I had moved out, so I definitely wasn't responsible for it. And it took a few months, but hey, it didn't take a few years.
Yeah.
It took a few months, and they got it cleared up and put away.
Your score went up pretty quickly after that.
I mean, mind you, if within those few months I had a major thing I was trying to do, I would have been in trouble. But this is, again, what Pam was talking about. When you're ramping up to try to make these big purchases or big life things, then start checking
stuff. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Even like trying to move to a new apartment, definitely start checking your credit score. So the thing...
So many things. It's not just your apartment.
Oh, we're going to talk about that
is that going to be after the break one?
Yeah,
okay, yeah. Because
I just want all of this to settle in, you guys. So again, just to reiterate, 35% of your credit score is made up of your payment history. 30% of your score is made up of the amount that you owe compared to your limits. A credit utilization ratio is what it's called. 10% of your score is made up of you trying to get new credit. 15% of your score is made up of your credit history. That's both the length of your oldest card and the average length of all of your credit lines. And 10% of your score is made up of credit mix in use, which means different types of credit that you are borrowing. All right, everybody, take a breath.
Yeah, let's go to, we're going to head out of New York up to Flint, Michigan, where they know about being systemically marginalized for an MC named J.A. Must have spent some time in New York because the album cover is a picture of the Lenox Lounge. I miss you, Lenox Lounge. Rest in peace, all the great jazz spots up in Harlem. But he's got a song called Credit Scores, and we'll check you in a minute. Bunch of budget.
La música de Harry Fraud.
I just wanna get faded. So much is on my mind. Credit scores and late payments. I'm trying to make a million shit and get famous. But if you never tried, then I guess you won't make it. I just wanna get faded. So much is on my mind. Credit scores and late payments. Trying to make a million shit, get famous. But if you never tried, then I guess you won't make it. Black lit. I usually don't smoke these, but I'm out of weed, but I'm on ease. Us G's like to play it on the low, call a freak drink, Kenny don't throw up on the flow. Gotta go, paper calling, you know I got my number. Got some shit to attend to, last 5 summers, mixtape after mixtape. Y'all niggas under won't hustle. Now wonder, red like wonder how far I can go without bumpers. Range looking good in the summer. Gotta give props when a nigga on this shit. Since a nigga on this shit, then them props I should get. Why? I just wanna get faded. So much is on my mind, credit scores and late payments. I'm trying to make a million shit and get famous. But if you never tried, then I guess you won't make it. I just wanna get faded. So much is on my mind, credit scores and late payments. I'm trying to make a million shit and get famous. But if you never tried, then I guess you won't make it. I just wanna get faded. So much is on my mind, credit scores and late payments. I'm trying to make a milli, shit, and get famous. And if you never tried, then I guess you don't make it. Sure.
And we're back. Brunch and Budget. That was Credit Scores by J.A. It's a bit of an older song, but I assume it's not current NBA superstar J.A. Morant. But who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? So we were just talking about back to basics, understanding your credit score, and we just went through all of the different things that go into making up your credit score. And if you have to go back and listen to that segment again, I get it. There's a lot going on. It took me a very long time to fully understand all of the different things that go into your score, and I'm still learning stuff every time I teach this, every time I do this.
We should actually...
And we keep getting curveballs, too.
Well, we have a nice visual one of the current one. We should put that in the show notes.
Yes, I will put that in the show notes.
Download that and
for
look
sure.
at it.
One thing that I wanted to bring up before we talk about who checks your credit is the difference between revolving debt and installment loans. And this is really important, too, because this is where that 30% credit utilization ratio comes in, is that really only affects revolving debt. So when I say that, I mean credit cards. Revolving debt are balances that can go up and down every single month where you pay it off and you put it back on. So credit cards, home equity lines of credit in general, those are the things that are considered revolving debt, and those are the only types of debt subject to the credit utilization ratio. The other type of debt that people borrow is called an installment loan, and that's basically I borrow this big chunk of money, for instance, to buy a car, right? I borrowed $20,000 to buy a car, and every single month I'm making it a payment, an installment payment essentially, to eventually pay down the balance over a certain period of time. And that's where the balance continuously goes down, and you're not like re-adding to the balance on a regular basis. So it's not revolving, it's called an installment loan. And those types of loans don't affect your credit as much as revolving debt, because revolving debt is the only debt that's subject to that 30% credit utilization ratio. So I wanted to point that out too, is if you borrow $20,000 and the balance is $20,000, but you're paying it down regularly every single month, then it's not affected by that credit utilization ratio. So that's really important to keep in mind as well. And now I want to talk about what is affected by your credit score, because it's a lot of things, surprisingly. This is why your credit score has become such a significant thing.
Well, and this is why it matters. Like, a lot of folks be like, whatever, credit scores, man. I'm going to just buy my house with cash when I make my $1 million from my $1 million a week job.
Yes.
I get. I mean, hey,
Yeah.
But
before all of that happens, maybe you'll need to get car insurance, because guess what? Car insurance companies are allowed to check your credit score to determine what car insurance rate they're going to charge you. If your credit score is lower, they're allowed to charge you more money for your car insurance.
Wait, so if they determine that my credit score is low, i.e. I'm not great with handling my money stuff, then car insurance, which is already expensive as all get out, is going to raise the rate?
Yeah, there's some kind of weird assumption that you are also going to be more expensive to insure.
Yeah,
for whatever reason.
Stereotyping on you.
Health insurance, they can also check your credit score to determine your health insurance rate. That might have gone away with Obamacare, but that's definitely something that was happening in the past.
I'm saying, like, what? Oh, just because I utilize 37% of my credit card, you think I'm only going to be eating greasy food?
Yeah, I don't know. Again, penalizes poor people, marginalized people, people of color.
Yeah, I mean, there's... I'm not even going to get into it because I know y'all listening, y'all already know just from the things that we're saying, but there's so many like little coded dog whistles in there to make sure that not just people who are currently poor, but people who come from poor backgrounds of all of the different marginalized ones. You can see little pieces of all of them in there about them like trying to stick them.
It's all in there. Your employer, you may know this, is allowed to check your credit score to determine whether or not you're responsible as an employee. Again, which makes no sense.
I would say this one at least like sort of sounds like it would make sense in some industries.
Except if you did not get in the credit game early. I have friends and clients who are 35 years old who never had a credit card. Why should that affect their ability to be employed if they are good at saving, if they pay their rent on time, if they pay their utility bills on time?
Well, you see, I wasn't saying it was a good thing. I'm saying it sort of sounds like it makes sense, especially from the employer's perspective, that, if I've got 2 resumes and they're sitting there in front of me and I'm like, I don't know which one. Well, this one here has a credit score that's higher, so that means that they're going to be more responsible, so maybe I should think about them. The thing that it is awful about is the whole idea of people having a right to work. There are very few things, people talk all the time about like right to freedom of speech or my right to bear arms and this, that, and the other thing and all this kind of stuff. And I don't really think we have any rights in this world or this country, even though we like to propagandize it like that. But one thing that has become a fundamental right of this capitalist world is the right to work.
Yeah.
It is important that we have when you look at homeless folks who don't have any kind of anything, they're squeegee in your hood, they're singing you a song.
They want to have some kind of purpose. They want to feel like they're working.
We have such an inherent need for that. So to deny that, regardless of any of the other stuff, is awful.
Well, and here's another thing that I actually didn't mention when it came to credit scores is one thing that can affect your credit score history positively or negatively is whether or not someone puts you as an authorized user on their credit card. So I have had clients whose parents have put them on their credit card since they were 16 years old, and I've had clients who are 26 years old who have a 30-year credit history because their parents have had credit cards for that long, and all of that gets transferred to them. We talk about generational wealth and generational poverty on that show, and it shows up in your credit scores as much as it shows up in your balance sheets.
Well, yeah, that's all in there of like if you ain't got enough to start out with. And, while you have some folks who will put you on your credit as an authorized user and then you'll be turning 18 with a great credit score, there's some of us who have adults messing around with our credit. Mm-hmm. You see this a lot in the foster care system or any situation where there's like guardians and stuff. I've had it happen to me. I turned 18 and didn't realize that I had bad credit from adults playing around with my score because people use your social security number, your social security number, and then don't pay stuff off or make some sort of late payments or any one of those things that we just told you about. Mm-hmm. It's going to affect you.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So the fact that your employer, your health insurance, your car insurance, your landlord, we all know this, your potential landlord can check your credit score to determine whether or not you can pay your rent, even though, again, your positive rent payments do not show up on your credit score. Only if you've made negative rent payments do they show up on your credit score. You don't make rent payments and it goes to collections.
See what I mean about like the bad relationship? Remember when you was in a relationship with that person and like they always complained, oh Mel, you didn't do the dishes today. But what about all the rest of the week? Huh? What about the trash I took out? I took out the trash. You ain't telling me nothing about that. I've been walking the dog. I was cleaning.
They didn't record that shit.
None of that. None of that. You did one thing wrong.
And then the next relationship, that's what shows up on your relationship report.
Well, I guess that's
they didn't
why,
wash dishes that one time.
Well, that's why we don't have like people always be talking about like we need a Yelp for these folks out here so that when I start dating I can find out all this stuff because you don't because bad relationships happen and those folks are petty.
It's true. It's true. No Yelp for relationships.
I'm digressing.
Don't start that company. And then a couple other places, cell phone companies check your credit score to determine whether or not they're going to allow you to basically like put your phone on a payment plan, for instance, or determine whether or not you're able to sign up for a contract. And utility companies also check your credit score, and they also, like Dialect said, he had a Con Ed story, they will send your not or late payments to collections and it'll show up on your credit score. It's all a mess, you guys. But it's not hopeless. It's not, Dialect, like he mentioned, started off with a bad credit story.
Yeah, I started out with a bad credit score. It was in, I think, the low 500s, and I was like aghast. I thought that, I was already the type of cat where I was like, oh, this is not going to be a thing. I'm not going to be the credit. I'm just going to buy a $1 million house, yada, yada. And then I saw this thing and I kind of doubled down. I was like, well, forget it. It's going to take forever. 7 years? 7 years? Who knows where I'm going to be at in 7 years? I might be dead in 7 years, which would mean that I wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. But guess what? I lived 7 more years. Stuff fell off my credit. It didn't even take that long for me to get myself into that access place. I went and got a secured card, which is something we haven't talked about now. Secured card is something you can get if you have bad or no credit, where you basically act as your own lender. I think I gave them $75 and they gave me like a $200 limit, so they thought it was a little trustworthy. They gave me a little bit of their own thing, but I had my skin in the game and I used it responsibly and I paid it off and did all the stuff. And then they offered me, after they saw that I was doing well with it, they offered me a regular credit card, and I got that and I was able to get the ball rolling. And I had got my score from the 500s to somewhere in the mid 600s in less than a year. And after a few years, I was able to build it up and to get that mid 750s range. So it's doable. It's possible. It just takes a lot of effort being placed on it.
Yes, you just have to focus and pay attention and learn a couple of the rules and let time pass, right?
Which is
you
the
set all
hardest
the
part.
stuff in place, you let time pass, the negative stuff rolls off, the positive stuff rolls in, and then in a couple years, you'll find yourself able to buy a car, get an auto loan, get a mortgage, buy a house, all of that kind of stuff. Because again, it comes down to access. When we are in this system, we want to be able to have access to these things so that we can continue to build wealth, so that we can start building wealth wherever place you are with your family and things like that. You want to be able to know what these rules are, because really and truly, one of the things that, you know, we've been talking about with Brunch and Budget is racial economic inclusion, but really what we've been seeing and what we've been understanding is that taking care of your personal finances is not just an act of self-care, it's an act of social justice. For you to be able to participate in the system, to excel in the system, and not be denied access within it means that you are able to do what you want to do within it, and you're able to help others and lift others up.
Yeah, I think I first read about this speech being given by Huey Newton to some of the Black Panthers, but I feel like every activist group that I've been around has had some version of it, where it's basically make sure you have all of your I's crossed and T's dotted so that they can't get you. So that you can still be in the game. And when it comes to handling your finances, you don't even have to be necessarily a revolutionary. I mean, you know, for a lot of us marginalized folks, just being alive. I'll say it for real. Being black, being immigrant, being poor, they don't want us to be alive. They don't want us to be alive. Being alive is a revolutionary act. And everything you can do to take care of yourself and build that up is going to be a revolutionary act. So you don't have to feel like I'm out there taking on the man and doing all this stuff. Just taking care of yourself, putting on that oxygen man first, making sure that you can breathe.
Yeah. Thank you. Take
thank
us out,
you.
dialect.
Oh, yeah. We can get it now that we're breathing and we're feeling good. I want to leave you guys off with a song. We're going to go all the way out to Cali. It just says California. I don't know where they're from exactly in California. For a cat named Worth D. Mention. And he's finishing us off from his album, Roses and Thorns, Pens and Swords, Smiles and Cries. Here is Bad Credit. We'll check y'all next time. Brunch and Budget. Peace.
Yo, what's up, man? Hey, can I borrow some money? Yeah, I'll get you back, man. You know that. But, bet your BET won't play me, and I'm not trying to be shady. And I'm not slim trying to kill my old lady. Keeps passing me by, got collections asking me why. And when my dividends, cause it still pays to be fly. Girls be pitching me sky, I still got it from 89. Size to knock ears from when Jordan was on the rise. Fiends on the block, buying rock, and I can get it. I got studio and beat student loans and bad credit. I need a hard knock life and an easy rock gig. Bootlegging the Black Album to all the white kids. Cause all I want is to provide for my kids. When I have them, they can see me when we chill and watch cribs. Living just enough for the city so rough and so tough. Times are really shitty, man, look at all the stuff. But I ain't got a penny straight and never ain't enough. Yeah, you heard me say it. Gonna hijack a truck or sell the street candy. Get down with me, dog, or what? Cause we can really plan it. Baby got a funky drum. Now how am I gonna get it? Running out of luck and junk. And I got bad. You see my cell phone bill, girl. Quit tripping. Get off my fucking phone. And lose some weight cause you eating me out of fucking home. Back on the streets drunk as hell. This is where I fucking roam. Don't like the cuss words in my song? Well, turn the fucker off. Belligerent shit, this is just a little bit. Read between the lines of your coat, cause I'm illiterate. A little bit of ignorance mixed with the Vegas wedding of the significance. I'm ghetto magnificent. Low class and no gas, old grass and blown glass. Sex packets, I'm rackets, I'm jacking yo ass. No need to roll fast, wanna be 50 cents. So just break me off your cash, more like 50 pesos. I'm down to bust foes, down to break bread, down to break laws and bust up your head. Being broke ain't no joke, but I bet if this makes you laugh, I bet you won't be smiling with my foot up in your ass. Living just enough for the city, so rough and so tough. Times are really shitty, man, look at all the stuff. But I ain't got a penny straight and never ain't enough. Yeah, you heard me say it, gonna hijack a truck or sell the street candy. Get down with me, dog, or what? Cause we can really plan it, baby got a funky trunk. Now how am I gonna get it? Running out of luck and junk. And I got back, man, this takes the kick putting funk in my dysfunctional nomadic mentality. You little punks who get a chunk or two. Mommy and daddy didn't pay for shit, call me a lucky bum, so you better get the hell out my face, you little yuppie scum. I'm funky fresh whenever laced, the bass guitar kicked out of my place, about to jack you for your Acura. Your upper class pumping ass, just better trade long. Forget postal, I'll go FedEx to get my mail on sale. I'm Bourbon Street with my kidney and a liver gone. Same old song I'm singing while I'm ringing up for bail bonds. Bankruptcy, flipping the bird on the monopoly. You can sue me or try to shoot me, fool, but you ain't stopping me. What you rockin', B? Cyrus and your jalopy. See me on the streets cause it's my only own property. Never coming sloppily unless your chick's on top of me. I don't need a handful of cash to rock this mic properly. Living just enough for the city, so rough and so tough. Times are really shitty, man, look at all the stuff. But I ain't straight never. Yeah, you heard me say it.